Welcome, everybody, to the September 2023 Cybersecurity Meetup. It's hard to believe, but this month marks the 2-year anniversary of doing meetups, if you can believe it. We started back in 2021, and as a way to keep our clients and our friends out in the IT community informed of, the latest things going on in cybersecurity. And I can't believe how much the landscape has changed in the last 2 years. It's a little crazy if you ask me. But I'm glad you're all here. As always, we encourage you to ask questions. There's a Q&A button on your ribbon there for you to ask questions. We are also recording the session, so we will be making it available to everybody that registered and also sharing it on our YouTube page later on next week. With me, we have the same cast of characters that tend to be at these things. Jeff Dix, Chief Security Officer for Alvarez Technology Group. Neil Mawani, Service Manager for ATG, as well as Senior Cybersecurity Consultant. And I, your humble guide, Luis Alvarez, President and CEO of Alvarez Technology Group. We welcome you, and we're excited about talking about incident response. But first, a couple of things that we just wanted to make you aware of that we'll be talking more about in the coming months. One of the things that we try to do is stay abreast and ahead of changes in the regulatory landscape, and that includes changes to what cyber insurance carriers are asking of their policyholders. And we have good relationships with a number of carriers out there, including our friends from CPOD Cyber. And these are the 4 new things that we are now starting to see in current renewals and in new policies. And we'll see this going forward into later this year into next year. So we will be incorporating these into our existing managed services agreements, adding, of course, there's some additional costs that will be required, but going forward, we'll also be adding it to all new agreements. But you see on here, one of the things is something called DMARC, and that's not anything that's really new. DMARC, SPF, and DKIM have been around for a while. It's a way to make email more secure, to make sure that the sending domain is really the domain, so that you can't spoof the sender. Now, cyber insurance companies are requiring that be implemented. That's a very technical and complicated process, especially to maintain. Also, the review of system logs for critical systems and using those logs to identify any issues that are going on the network or in the environment, and retaining those logs up to a year, so that if there is an incident, they can go back and review the logs and determine, if there was any forensically any indication of a breach at some point during that year. The deployment of decoy honeypot systems within the network, and this is to try to attract the bad guys by essentially creating an unprotected system. Honeypot is a term that guys, how long has it been since we heard it?
It's been around for a while.
A long time.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time, and not something that anybody really has actively used, but now we're starting to see it as a requirement. So
honeypots used to be deployed in DMZs, but hardly anybody's using DMZs anymore. But it looks like the insurance carriers are wanting some sort of a honeypot.
Anil, can you, since we're on the subject, tell us what a honeypot does? I mean, what's the purpose behind it?
Sure. So a honeypot is kind of as it sounds, attract the flies, if you will. It's a unsecured system that you would put on your network. And as Jeff pointed out, typically they put them in a DMZ, which is a demilitarized zone. It's like a section of your network that's kind of segmented off, that's sort of open to the internet. And if the bad guys go start poking at this unsecured system, you'll get alerts from your alert management system letting you know, hey, you're on the bad guys' radar. They're poking around in your system, and they're going for the honeypot because it's the unsecured machine that's there. But really, the whole purpose of it is to alert you and let you know that you're on alert. You should heighten your security.
The Air Force used to call it an early warning system.
Yeah,
exactly.
Canary in the coal mine kind of thing.
Exactly.
And then finally, the more germane to the topic at hand today, the implementation of a robust incident response plan. And we'll talk more about why that's necessary, but that's now a requirement that carriers are going to be demanding for renewals and new policies. And unfortunately, I don't think this will be the last set of requirements that we'll see. That's why we're calling it 2023, 2024, because we think as the insurance market matures and as these carriers try to mitigate their risks, they're identifying different things that they want people to do in order to, improve their protections against cyber threats, but also minimize the possibility of them having to pay out on claims. So stay tuned. But speaking of CPOD, you'll be hearing more about this in the few coming weeks. They are now offering a new cybersecurity insurance product that's really easy to qualify for if you are using our managed security services agreement stack of products and services to protect yourself. You get pre-qualified. It's pretty easy and quite frankly, fairly inexpensive. So you'll be hearing more about this in the next few months. But with that, I'd like to just get to the conversation at hand. I'm going to stop my presentation here. And gents, let's talk incident response and what that means. So what is the reason? Well, first off, let's ask this question. What is an incident response plan? I mean, how would you describe it? Jeff, I'll give you the first shot.
Okay, sure. It's a pre-thought of plan, pre-prepared plan that encompasses IT in some cases, but we really want to kind of think of it more broadly than just covering IT. We as IT professionals usually focus on the IT part of it, but it could be an incident response plan for anything that might happen to an organization. It could be active shooter, it could be hurricane, it could be flood, and of course some of those events are also going to always involve IT systems, or just maybe even just an extended blackout, loss of power. And basically, why it's important is because we've worked with customers in the past that don't have a plan in place, and the first thing that happens if they get ransomware or other malware event is just pure panic, right? Nobody knows what to do. So a plan is a good way to prepare and not have that initial panic response, knowing that you have a plan in place. It's a process that you follow. You have roles defined for individuals in the company, such as who's going to talk to the press, who's going to lead the IT response, who's going to be the lead person, the lead engineer, if it's an IT-related incident. And it's just good preparation so that you don't get caught not knowing what to do when something bad happens, either on your network or, like I said, active shooter, the other types of incidents that an organization can encounter. I think is that a good summary?
Yeah, that's a good summary. Anil, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I always like to use the term a playbook. It's something that can kind of guide you step by step what you need to do, when you need to do it, and who is responsible for doing it. It should also be, your incident response plan should be something that you can tabletop as well, something that you can practice within your organization so that everybody knows what their role is in the event of an actual incident. And especially in the event of a cyber incident, because typically one of the first calls, if not the first call you're going to make if you have cyber insurance, is to your cyber insurance carrier. And if you've got an incident response plan, you can have that conversation with your cyber insurance company in a calm and well thought out manner, as opposed to just calling them in a panic like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then they're gonna be like, you are supposed to have an incident response plan. It actually says so here on your cyber insurance questionnaire. So things like that can really show whether you know what you're doing or not when it comes to calling your cyber insurance for a claim.
So what it sounds like a really valuable thing to have and practical, something that we should have. But why are cyber insurance companies asking for it? What do you think is the reasoning behind that? And I'll let you take the lead on that one, Anil.
Yeah, cyber insurance companies want to make sure that you've got your I's dotted and your T's crossed. They want to make sure that you've got your ducks in a row in order for them to be able to underwrite a policy for you, so that if an incident were to occur, they know that you've got the pieces of the puzzle in place to handle the incident. And an incident response plan is really fundamental to that. And so if you don't have one or you aren't actively working on one, cyber insurance companies are either not going to underwrite you, or your premiums are going to just be that much higher, because you're not showing that as a business owner or as an organization, you're doing your due diligence to make sure that not if, but when a cyber incident or any kind of incident, like Jeff pointed out, earthquake, active shooter, global pandemic, where people have to distribute all over from wherever, that you've got what you need in place, and that you're practicing it, like you're at least annually doing tabletop exercises to work through your plan and keep it updated on a regular basis, so that if something were to happen, the insurance company knows you've done the due diligence and is willing to pay out on your claim.
And that is the language that we see when it comes to that, that one box you have to check. It says, have you implemented an incident response plan that you update, review, and test regularly. So they're very big on, you got to test it, and you got to show them that you tested it. Because when you get your insurance company involved in the process, during the process, they're going to do everything they can to help you. But at the end of it, when it's all done and wrapped up, that's when they go through okay, so let's make sure that you actually did everything that you said that you were supposed to be doing in order to prevent this from happening.
Yeah.
So show us examples of your, cybersecurity training. Show us your last tabletop exercise. Oh, you didn't do a test of your incident response plan. Well, maybe that will give us an excuse to not honor the policy and deny the claim because you didn't do what you said you were going to do. And that's not that insurance companies are bad people, but it's, they're in this to make a buck. And if they can save money by denying a claim, they will in a heartbeat. So who are, you mentioned some already, but who are some of the people or some of the roles that would be involved in a cyber incident response? And are they only internal people, or do you involve external people as well?
I would say that there's certainly external people involved. The organization might already have a breach attorney, which would advise the organization on the process of the breach from a legal perspective. Also, what their obligations might be to report the breach reporting rules in the state of California and for the federal government, for HIPAA. Those are when you need to have a breach attorney involved. A lot of organizations, if a organization goes through a malware or ransomware event, and they call in their cyber insurance company, the cyber insurance company is also going to bring to the table possibly their breach attorneys, also the forensics folks to come in and work with the IT provider or the IT folks at an organization to investigate the incident and figure out exactly what happened, how they got in, what data was exfiltrated, if that's been able to be determined, those kinds of things. So there's a lot of external folks kind of connected to a cyber incident that has cyber insurance connected to it.
Anil, any additional insight?
I think Jeff covered it pretty much. The other things that come to mind are making sure that you tell, if it's in particular HIPAA, you may have to tell the media that something has happened. So there are external entities like that are involved, or the SEC or FDIC, depending on what regulatory compliancy board that you fall under, that you need to notify that you're, in a breach or undergoing a breach, or potential breach. No one ever likes to use that B word unless they absolutely have to. But yeah, it's not and going to just be internal, especially for small and medium-sized businesses where a lot of the people that you rely on are going to be consultants or lawyers or managed services providers. You're going to be alerting those people outside of your organization. But your comprehensive incident response plan should say who internally is responsible for bringing those external entities in and at what point in the procedures that they should come in.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because, we over the years have been brought in by folks that got hit with a breach, whether it was ransomware or a business email compromise, which is becoming, much more common than, traditional ransomware attacks. And one of the first questions we always ask is, well, do you have cyber insurance? And it's fascinating how many times the answer is, I don't know. I'm going to have to call my broker and find out. Just that the fundamentals of that kind of information, like who is your insurance carrier? Because really, it's not the broker anymore. Most of us buy insurance through a third-party broker. They do all the arrangements. They find us the policy carrier and all that sort of stuff. But once we have those policies, it's the carrier that you now contact. It's not your broker. And so, most people will get that policy, unfortunately, and they'll tuck it away somewhere in a folder. It's a paper file that they stick in the filing cabinet someplace or in somebody's drawer. And that person happens to be on vacation that week. So you got an incident and nobody knows where to find the paperwork. We don't know who our carrier is. We don't know who to contact. We've run into all of those kind of situations where we end up playing the role of, like incident response team lead, helping them make those kind of decisions. But honestly, you need to I think an organization needs to have somebody internally who takes the lead, that can speak to the press, that can speak to internally to their staff and let them know what's going on, especially if it's an organization that has multiple locations, for example, and maybe one location is put out of commission, but the rest of them are still trying to work. But hey, what's going on with HQ? We can't seem to get anybody over there. Nobody knows what's going on. Having an incident response plan makes that all much easier to kind of handle, because you got the plan, you got the playbook. You know what to do.
Yeah, and to add to that, Lewis, the idea of keeping it in a filing cabinet, I mean, that this is a digital age. This stuff should be in the cloud. Because what if you're in, like you said, vacation, but what if your incident is fire or flood, and the documentation and the incident response plan are sitting in a filing cabinet that's slowly burning to the ground or slowly sinking underwater? That's not going to do anybody any good. It's got to be something that anyone in the organization can get to from anywhere. If they have to vacate the building and go to a Starbucks down the street and get online, they should be able to reach the incident response plan and cyber insurance documents and everything that they need in order to successfully mitigate that incident.
Jeff, you were about to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I just add something that you mentioned before. And one of the things I always advise clients is to not jump the gun and start calling, an incident a breach. It should remain sort of an investigation into an anomaly, because when you start calling things either internally as an organization or from the outside, a breach has different requirements as far as notification to the people's records that may have been compromised. So, and that's why a breach attorney is so important to be involved, either the organization's attorney or the cyber insurance attorney, because you don't want to be making the call that you've had a breach, which will obligate you to do all these notifications. And that process can be just as expensive or more expensive than just dealing with the breach, with the incident itself. So just a little bit of advice there is let the professionals or the forensics company or the breach attorney, they'll make the determination of what the actual incident is classified as, which will then drive the notifications to the folks who potentially had their data leaked or exfiltrated.
that you bring up a really good point. It's something that we've talked to a number of our clients about, especially if you're larger. If you are a larger organization with a much more public face, you really need to identify these professionals in advance. I mean, if you are a big firm, you should have a PR firm that you're working with, or PR, public relations people that you have already identified, the communications that you want to send out, so that it's not like, okay, what do we tell the press? What do we tell our customers? What do we tell, our staff? The plan lets you identify that. And to your point, Anil, about using a hosted environment, a platform, rather than just a series of documents. The platform that we partner with for our incident response, or that we are going to be partnering with, we've already been working with them for a while and testing their platform. We're really happy with it. Now that this requirement that we identified at the beginning of the webinar is out there, that incident response planning needs to be part of your cyber insurance preparation. The idea of having a platform makes it so much easier to communicate, because you can automate things like texting and emails, right? So rather than trying to identify where is everybody, who should we tell, you can load the platform with everybody's mobile number, and you can just send out push a button and say, hey, we've been hit with a cyber incident, or there's a cyber incident going on. We'll give you more information as soon as we know it. But now you've communicated that to everybody in the system without having to do, field phone calls and field a bunch of emails randomly throughout the day as people are asking what's going on. So you can load all of those communications into the platform. When you launch the incident, it then says, it's kind of like a series of steps. What do you want to do next? Well, we need to call the breach attorney. One of the other things that we recommend is have your own breach attorney. Yes, the insurance carrier can make one available to you, but remember, they work for the carrier. So they are going to be doing whatever is best for the carrier, not what is best for you. And sometimes those two are not in alignment. So in some cases, and we've seen this, we've been part of incidents where the carrier's attorney says, don't do anything, don't touch anything until we tell you. And we ask, well, how long is that going to be? And they'll say, might be weeks. And we're like, they don't care that this is a business that's trying to continue to function and continue to deliver product or services. They're like, no, they're looking at it in this very kind of antiseptic, legal, forensic way that, no, we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to identify who the bad actors are, and make sure that we can communicate and negotiate with them, and they're not foreign terrorists. And that may take us some time. And so until we tell you to, just don't do anything. And you need to have your own attorney that says, whoa, let's talk about this. Can we do these things, or can we do these other things that won't violate the terms of our policy, so that we can file a claim and get paid, but we can also take care of business. So having your own attorney is one of the critical things that you identify as you go through this process of creating a cyber incident response plan.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. You want to have an attorney that's on your side, that's viewing the situation from the point of view of your organization, and not rely on somebody else's legal advice.
Exactly.
And by the way, not every attorney is cyber savvy, so to speak. You got to make sure that the firm you're working with, if you're working with a firm, has somebody either on staff, or that is an attorney that outside the firm that they can bring in when these things happen. Because a regular estate planning attorney, or a guy or a gal really good at litigation, this is not their area of expertise. You want to have somebody that understands what the laws are, that can give you good advice about reporting. Hey, here are all the state, local, and federal organizations that you need to report on, because you've reached certain thresholds. But you should know that ahead of time. You should identify that during the planning stage, so that if you have an incident and it is reportable based on certain criteria, hey, we know who to send this out to. We know who needs to be communicated to. We don't have to scramble around and try to figure this out.
Good info.
Yeah, most recently we all witnessed the slowly rollout of the MGM ransomware attack in Vegas, which affected, I don't know, 13 properties, they said, because MGM owns a lot of properties in Las Vegas, and it was their central network that got hit. And there's an example of an incident response plan that kind of went sideways, because while they were communicating to the public at large that everything's fine, business is great, nothing's affected, people can still come and gamble, you had people on being interviewed in the casino saying, yeah, I can't get into my room key doesn't work anymore. I can't order food at the restaurant, or the gaming machines aren't working. So there was a kind of a disconnect there between what they were trying to communicate and what the reality on the ground was. So that's an example of probably an incident response plan that wasn't really tested thoroughly enough so that they would have caught all of these things. Now, obviously, this is a multi-billion-dollar organization, and we don't all enjoy the luxury of having the kind of funds that they have in order to do this sort of stuff. But even a small organization should understand what their liabilities are when it comes to a cyber incident, and who they need to communicate to and communicate with, especially if they have clients that are impacted, or other relationships
or vendors. Yeah,
exactly.
Could affect vendors, right? So vendors that provide supplies for an organization that's essential to the production of their products.
And depending on the kind of business that you are, I mean, there's some reputational damage that could be incurred if you don't manage the incident well. If you don't communicate to the right people at the right time, and you keep people in the dark and let people speculate as to what's really going on, your customers may shy away from doing business with you because you didn't communicate with them. You didn't tell them what was going on. So developing a cyber incident response plan that includes all of these elements is something that I know we're working with our new partner Exigence in developing those kind of playbooks that we could simply alter as needed for the specific client, but that has all of these key components already baked in so that we don't have to create it from scratch every time. And let's face it, we're a hybrid workforce now. Many of our senior leaders in a lot of organizations don't tend to be in the office all the time. So if you have a CEO or CFO or an HR director that is part of the plan and they're not in the office, you want them to be able to participate from wherever they happen to be. If they happen to be living in a different part of the country, or vacationing in a different part of the country, or a different part of the world, they're part of the incident response plan by hosting it on a web-based platform. You eliminate the need for them to be anywhere near the office and still be effective in dealing with the incident. So coming up to the end of our session for today, are there any questions about incident response planning or anything else that we talked about that we could answer? Please use the Q&A. If not, thank you guys for that information. I think it's valuable, and I'm glad we were able to take time today to pass it along. One last thing I know, Jeff, you wanted to talk about is the recent Microsoft decision to deprecate some of the MFA functionality, and what that means for folks who are using Microsoft products and enable multi-factor authentication.
Yes, we've been encountering and dealing with it for the last couple of days. So for those organizations that are on Microsoft 365 and have any version of what they used to call Azure Active Directory, they're no longer allowing, they no longer want users to use SMS text or voice for multi-factor authentication. Microsoft is slowly going to force all organizations to use the Microsoft Authenticator app in multi-factor authentication. So they've started a campaign out there and have several of our users. I won't say many yet, but it's going to turn into many. Several users from some of our clients that we support have been getting the pop-up saying, "Hey, you must upgrade to Microsoft Authenticator." It gives you 3 or 4 times. It'll give you that notification, and then it'll turn your SMS or voice based multi-factor authentication off, and they won't be able to get in until they call IT. So something to look out for. It is a good thing in the respect that the Microsoft multi-factor authenticator is going to be much more secure than traditional SMS, text-based thing, or voice, dial to a phone, multi-factor authentication. But unfortunately, we've been wrapping up a lot of our MFA projects for our clients, and most clients have mixed, right? Some of them have Microsoft Authenticator, some of them are using SMS-based texting, and some of them are using, phone call to a desk phone, and it's gonna. We're going to have to go back and do some projects for clients to take care of the SMS and the voice direct to phone multi-factor authentication method. So just thought we'd mention that. It's going to be a kind of a pain in the neck for everybody, but long term will be much more secure and hopefully reduce the risk of an incident or a breach occurring, although we don't like to use those terms.
And one thing too to be wary of is, of course, no good change goes unpunished by the bad guys. And so they know that Microsoft has communicated this change to their customers. And now they're starting to flood the internet with emails that have QR codes that pop up and within, it's a phishing email that'll say, "Oh, we've changed your MFA. Please use this QR code to set up your new MFA." It's not really Microsoft sending that. They don't do that. They never send you a QR code to set up MFA. So that is something that you should be wary of and ignore and let your users know. I know we communicated that out to our clients a couple of weeks ago that we were starting to see those phishing emails. We'll probably send another follow-up because they haven't gone away. They're still out there. I just got one from my HR department this morning. HR department.
Yeah, those threat actors are pretty smart. Sometimes I think they're smarter than we are. They're always ahead of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you again, gents. We went a little long today, but I thought it was valuable to add that new MFA change that Microsoft is making. If you have any questions about that or anything that we talked about, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions later. And stay tuned for October. It'll be Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So we're going to be talking a lot about cybersecurity overall, but we'll make it a special one in October. Take care. And
good session, guys. Bye.
See you next month.